Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So for the sake of time, I'm going to kind of rapid fire this to keep us on track. And so keep me on time here. Thanks, Rachel. All right. So I'm a neuropsychologist. I'm a clinician at Kennedy Krieger Institute. And I am also a clinical, so yes, I'm a clinician. I'm also a researcher as well, really specializing in rare neurogenetic conditions. And I also wanted to share that I'm also a sibling of an individual with a rare neurogenetic condition called ASXL3. My brother was diagnosed in early 1990s with autism and intellectual disability. And then when he was around 30 years old and I was a clinician working with rare disease patients, I was like, hey, Mom, I think we should get some genetic testing. He looks like a lot of my patients. And so we did. And he was diagnosed, and so it was a very long diagnostic journey, but here we are. And so I feel very honored to be here today as a family member and as a clinician and researcher. So thank you so much to the foundations for having me today. I'm really excited to talk about some of the work in outcome measurement, specifically patient-focused outcome measurement. So why do we need measures? Well, we need measures for diagnosis, for categorization in terms of understanding severity of certain aspects of the clinical profile. We need measures to monitor development, monitor symptoms over time. We need measures for clinical care and for research studies, right? So in clinical care, we're treating and supporting on the individual level, and for research studies, we're really trying to understand the group more broadly. And so two kind of relevant types of research studies are natural history studies, which I know some of you are participating in. This is really important for understanding these conditions over the life course. And then, of course, clinical trials, where we're trying to understand the efficacy of treatments. So measures are important, but what should we measure, right? Well, we should measure things that are very, so what we measure should be very patient-focused, meaning that we should measure what matters most to patients, as these are the aspects of the condition that are most important to treat and monitor, right? So the treatments that we develop should be focused on the aspects of the condition that are most impactful and matter most to patients. And so when I say patients here, what I'm talking about is patients and their families. So let's focus on clinical trial readiness. Now, I mentioned that measures are important for clinical care, other types of research studies, but for today I'm going to talk mostly about getting ready for clinical trials and the measures that we need to get ready. So there are currently no FDA-approved treatments for MED13L or CTNNB1, but therapies are on the horizon, right? And so we need to have validated, patient-focused outcome measures ready for use in clinical trials. This is so important to test the efficacy of novel treatments. So I want to direct your attention to the FDA Patient-Focused Drug Development Guidance Series. This is very, very amazing. These are some guidances for researchers, for industry, for anyone interested in moving towards therapeutics for these rare diseases. And the FDA recognizes and wants to support drug development that is patient-focused, that we're taking the patient's experiences, perspective, needs, and priorities, and that they're meaningfully incorporated in this pathway towards treatment. They recognize that patients are uniquely positioned to inform the understanding of therapeutic context for drug development and evaluation. They are the experts, right? So what I have here is basically a really nice roadmap to patient-focused outcome measurement in clinical trials. This is directly from the guidances, and this is really a pathway towards understanding what is most important to patients and how do we measure those things. And so I use a lot of this in my research, and as do my colleagues. And so we're going to walk through this. So the first one here is understanding the disease or condition. This is crucial, right? So when we're thinking about measurement, we often think of quantitative means, right? We're measuring something. However, when we're talking about measure development, we really need to take a qualitative approach as well to really understand that patient experience. And what's so interesting, I was recently at the FDA talking with them about measure development for rare neurogenetic conditions, and they emphasized you must have good qualitative data. Good quantitative work will not solve the problems of poor qualitative work. We need to hear that patient voice. We need to understand that rich experience of the patient in order to inform this work. So there's many different ways we can understand the disease or condition. Behavioral phenotyping, so understanding the phenotype, the clinical presentation. We need to do that across the life course through natural history studies and also the other aspects of the medical picture, right? We need to know what to expect and what's important to measure over time. Also, conceptual models are important, so looking at the literature on what is published about the condition, and then also talking to families about their experience. That can go into the conceptual model as well. Also, understanding impacts and priorities. What is most impactful to the child's or individual's quality of life? What's most important to treat according to that patient or to their family, right? These are really, really important pieces for understanding the condition. So I'm going to kind of run through some examples of the ways that we have worked to capture the patient experience to inform patient-focused outcome measure development in my work. So this is a survey. I'm part of the Inchstone Project, which is a project really focused on, thank you. Project is really focused on developing better outcome measures, specifically for those who are more severe to profoundly impacted. And so this was a survey we did of 267 caregivers of individuals with severe impairments across many different rare neurogenetic conditions. This is a very structured, quantitative way. So we hypothesized there are certain aspects of these conditions that are impactful to quality of life. And so we listed those out and asked caregivers to say, okay, you know, how much does this particular symptom impact your child's quality of life? And so this is a very structured and quantitative approach. In the same survey, we asked more open-ended qualitative questions as well, like what does a good day look like for your child, or what does a bad day look like for your child? And these word clouds are real data from the survey. And so this can really kind of bring to a little bit more to life what that lived experience is, and is super important for understanding the condition and what's important. This is a more quantitative way, so we looked at predictors of quality of life, so what variables from the medical picture, from the developmental picture are most predictive of quality of life in this sample, and we used a CART analysis, which is some fancy statistics that I don't know how to do actually. My colleagues helped me with this, but what I do know is that what came from our model is that cognition on the developmental profile 4 was one of the best predictors of quality of life in this particular sample, and also use of a touch screen. Being able to interact and use a touch screen was also a big predictor. So this is really interesting. This was another kind of priority survey that I did, was very open-ended and qualitative. I partnered with the R Foundation, which is represents ASXL-related disorders 1, 2, and 3. And so this was a survey where we just simply asked, hey, what is the most important symptom of this condition that you want treated first? And so these data, we got over 200 parents who responded, and the top 3 were neurodevelopment, severe behavior, and GI symptoms. This initial data led us to do apply for a follow-up PCORI grant, which we got, where we're able to do focus groups with 40 participants at the conference last summer, the family conference. And this gave us some rich understanding of neurodevelopment, GI symptoms, and behavior, really from the lived experience, and telling us what does a day look like, right? What is the impact of these symptoms? How do they impact the child, the family more broadly, right? And so, thank you. This was amazing, rich data. So I think you can see there's many ways we can get this patient experience data that's important for informing outcome measure development. And I think we need to take a multimodal approach and a multi-strategy approach, but all of it involves families and partnering with families and patients. So that's the big picture. Putting this out there. Rachel, this is a QR code for the MED13L priority survey. It is live, right? Yep. Yes. So you can contribute to this, to understanding the condition, understanding priorities towards outcome measurement and towards clinical trials in this condition. And I know the concept map is being presented for CT-NMB1. I know the disease concept map is being finalized, and the next step is to launch a priority survey, right? Okay. I think I probably have 30 seconds left, yeah? Okay. I'm going to skip through. We're going to skip through some of the framework. Hey, if you have questions, I'll be here. You come and find me and we can talk more. I think what the big picture is, I'm going to get to that, is that your voice matters, right? We must bring together experts, patients, caregivers early on in this process, utilizing co-design methods. So what that means is really working together to maximize the likelihood of developing measures that are valid and will capture meaningful outcomes in clinical care and research contexts. All right, so thank you so much for your attention.